Safety Committee meeting. Amanda, do we have, no, here. Okay, thanks for the order.
We're not ready yet. We're waiting for Zoom. I'm sorry, for YouTube.
Waiting for YouTube. Okay. We're live. So give me a thumbs up if we're good to go.
You are on YouTube now, if that's what you're waiting for.
Okay, thank you. All right, first up is fire prevention and building codes and enforcement. Charles, are you on? I see you now. Okay. You have the floor. Oh, you know what? Before we start, motion to accept the minutes of prior committee meeting. Who would like to make that motion? Okay, Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Sieber. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Charles, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully this will be fairly simple for at least us. We were asked to come in with a flat budget, and that's we actually reduced from last year when it went to the so if everybody's had a chance to review this, there's not a lot to go over.
Yeah, Charles, can you speak? Charles, can you speak into the microphone better? Thank you.
Okay, no problem. We were able to offset step increases out of the 0.4 accounts. And then the other biggest change was with the insurance. So, you know, we were able to come in quite a bit under last year when it came to total budgets. So I guess really, unless there's, you guys can look and see what you have for questions, and I'll be glad to field them and give you a little bit of a report where we're at for the year. But other than that, there's not a lot of changes.
Charles, I think it would help if you could give us a report for how you are looking this year and how that might line up with next year's projections. Sure.
This morning, when it came to revenues, as of this morning, we were at $139,008. And that's, I think we were at 123 when we did the budget committee. So had a couple of really big weeks. Hopefully that flow of permits continues to come through the door and carries us through and gets to the 203 that we're looking for. Mm-hmm. Probably one of the bigger places that we're hitting a shortfall is in fire safety inspections. There's a difference of about 350 inspections year to date, mainly to do with being shut down. And then trying to get everybody back up running with putting the emphasis on getting business or building permits issued, people back to work, all those type of things, and then not going after businesses when they had been closed down with inspection fees. So trying to make some of that up this fall now that everybody's had a chance to be functioning for the summer. But I don't know, I'm remaining hopeful that we can hit the 203, providing there's still a good flow of stuff coming through the door. I think that's going to happen. Seems to be an awful lot of money being spent out there still for building. I don't know, we'll see what the next 3 months bring.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Wallace?
I would like to, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor McGowan.
That's right. How's it going with the gym inspections? We added
That's been fine. It seems like it's a little bit light. I think the original numbers have we haven't certainly not hit the original numbers they were anticipating, so that's been going on.
Oh, good. So it's more of like a slower opening on some of the gyms where you're able to keep up with. That's good news.
I think so.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Lehman, anybody from the public chiming in?
Not at this point, Supervisor Leggett.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for the budget here for building codes, fire safety? Hearing none, we'll let you go, Charles. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Close that one. Next up is Office of Emergency Services. Director LaFleur, are you available?
I'm here for you, sir.
Okay. I see you now. Thank you. You have the floor, Brian. Go right ahead.
Going down our agenda here, our request number 1 is to have a contract with Lozelle Industries. They have given us a price to provide the pieces we need for the bailout system at the Fire Training Center. This is something we've been trying to get done for a while. We're working very hard to make sure that I don't know if you're familiar with the bailout system, is where the firefighters practice going out a window. If they get caught or trapped or whatever, they have their rescue rope with them. There's a way that they have to attach it to their tool inside the building, and they bail out a window, a 2-story window. So there's a safety system where we have a rope connected to them, but our belay, called the belay system, it's really not at the level we would like it to be. So we had our engineer design that for us, and that's the price that we got to put it in. But we need a contract with Lozelle to move ahead.
Okay. I will ask for a motion to bring that to the floor. Who can make that motion? Supervisor Jefferson, thank you. Second by Supervisor Sieber. Motion's on the floor. Any questions? Brian, this is coming out of a capital account. I take it you have the money in it?
Yes, that's coming out of the capital project account.
Okay. And this will be done this fall, I assume?
As soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Discussion from anybody? And I can't see the whole boardroom. If there's anybody there, please speak up. Okay, not hearing any discussion, we'll call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 2?
Request number 2 is for a resolution to transfer funds from a source to be determined for our fire prevention and control, the medical fees that we need for our hazmat team. Money was removed from that in last year's budget, and we still have to do those physicals. So we need an additional $3,300 for that. And then also in that same resolution, the training that the hazmat team is going to be doing this fall in October, the cost for that per Chief Schrammel is $14,600. So we're looking for $17,900.
Okay.
This
Thank
amounts to about the $25,000 that we keep in our budget every single year for hazmat, which is one thing that we are required per the contract with them to pay up to $25,000 for expenses for training in the medical. And we took it out last year and this year, or for this year's budget, so it's not in there. We're working under the assumption that rather than have it sitting there and not use it, come back to you anytime we need it. And this is the time when we need it.
That's thank you. Motion to bring that to the floor.
So moved.
Supervisor Simpson, thank you. A second? No second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Supervisor Sieber. Okay, discussion? So I know in going through the budget meeting, that $25,000 as a contractual obligation was spoken about, and of not putting it in until we need it. And at this point, we need it. So on that to be determined budget code, any recommendations? Brian, is Kevin on here, budget officer?
Kevin's not here right now. I assume it's gonna come down to contingency or one of those line items. I understand why we took the 25,000 out of the budget to raise the 25,000 and not use it each year. I understand the reasoning behind taking it out, but the bottom line is we're still obligated to pay those dollars. And when it was taken out, it was understood that should we need some of those dollars, we were gonna come back to this group.
That's correct. And traditionally, we would budget a $25,000 appropriation in line with the logic that if they needed the money, it would have to be in the budget. But that's what we have contingency for. So the place to transfer it from would be contingency. When you budget the $25,000 separate from contingency, all you're doing is raising taxes on $25,000 that you may or may not spend. So in recognition of the fact that we have an account that's there for that, we decided not to put it in for 2020.
Okay, so should this motion come out of committee with contingency as the recommended budget code?
I would say so, if that's what the committee would like to do, and send it up to finance.
Okay, Matt and Rachel, are you good with amending it that the code be contingency fund?
Yes.
Okay, we'll so amend the resolution to have the funding source of $17,900. That's the correct amount?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 3?
Resolution number 3 is just a paperwork scenario. The original request to create the position of temporary fire coordinator for when we actually get to the point where we hire a director and we need a temporary fire coordinator until a new one is hired. That been out in 6 months, so we just need to extend that. We're going to extend that in 6 months.
Was that, did somebody just move that? Okay, looking for somebody to move that motion.
I'll move it. Ben Driscoll.
Thank you, Supervisor Driscoll. And a second?
Well, I'm happy to monopolize seconds this morning.
Thank you, Supervisor Sieber. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the extension is long enough until the position is filled, correct?
That's up to you, but I hope so.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll make that work. Good, thank you. Okay. Shall we get right into the budget review, or would you like to update us on the vehicle storage building first?
Either one, it doesn't matter. I hope that some of you had a chance to take a look at it. It's a really nice building. It is complete with the exception of the overhead doors need to be installed. They came in last week.
Good.
The DPW did a really nice job fixing up the blacktop around the building from where they cut out of the parking lot. That looks really good. The other thing that I bring to you per Mr. Hagos, so far any change orders that have been done for this building, of which there's only been 1 or 2, a very small amount, have come out of the project fund. The project fund was at $450,000, which was the amount of money that was received for the sale of the building down at the old site. So far, with the building cost at $379 and a few change orders, we're at $382,000, which leaves $68,000 in that amount or in that project fund. One thing that has to be done before we can move in is the electricity needs to be put into the building. We have a price from the county electrician for all the materials of $6,000. And I originally thought we were just doing a change order, but Mr. Hajos asked me to bring this to committee, to make sure everyone is aware of where we stand with the dollars in that account. So we would be taking an additional $6,000 out, which would leave $62,000 in the current project account.
Okay, and you have full authority to move ahead with that change order. You do not need a resolution for us to amend or add anything. Is that correct?
That's my question, I guess, to the group. Mr. Hager said he wasn't going to do the change order. I'm not quite sure I understand that because he did the last ones, but he said it had to come to this committee. So I'm willing to do whatever is necessary to make this work. If they're going to transfer funds into my budget, and I'll do it, or he does it through his regular project account, whatever the paperwork is that has to be done, I would like to move this along, as right now, we can't move in without the electricity because we have to plug the equipment in. If I don't have electricity, I gotta leave the equipment where it is. So whatever we have to do, I guess it's a combination of letting you know what we're doing and a question as to how we're going to deal with any expenses for this building in the future.
Yes. Yeah, when we went into this building, we had that $450,000 from the sale. We recognized that the bid came in for a bare bones building. It did not include any improvements on the inside, and that there would be need to do improvements on the inside. So this is a larger ticket item. I wonder, is it because of purchasing and procurement policy, it being a $6,000 change order, that Superintendent Hajos wanted to come before us? Ryan, is there any protocol here?
Well, yeah, we already had a discussion, me, Brian LaFleur, Kevin Hajos, Doug Beatty, Beatty, Facilities, had a conversation about procedure on this. We agreed that we bring it to this committee. If this committee is okay going forward because it involves subject matter of public safety, then we'll send it to Facilities tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll move it.
Moved by Matthew. Is there Supervisor Simpson? Is there another second on this one?
I'm happy to second.
Okay. Glad you're there, Supervisor Sieber. We wouldn't begin far otherwise. Okay. A motion is on the floor to appropriate $6,000 for electrical upgrades to the new Office of Emergency Services Vehicle Storage Building. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So that will show up at tomorrow's Facilities then.
Very good, thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Brian, you're going to need anything else for that building?
There will be a few minor items. I've been doing walkthroughs with Superintendent Hajos, and between his people and myself, we've come up with some good ideas. Nothing major, some shelving that we can put in the back of the building so the stuff isn't all on the floor. I'm sure there'll be some minor things will come along, but there will be some miscellaneous items. So again, that's up to you if you would like to set aside an amount from the project account that we wouldn't have to bring every item back here to committee. That would be ideal, but that's up to you.
Let's propose a plan with items that you need, and we'll take it up at a later date. Thank you.
Okay, budget. You should have copies of our budget. I can go through it. Does anyone have any questions? I'll do that first before we go through it.
Oh.
This does not include the $25,000, and we'll do exactly the same thing in 2021 as we just did here. If there is a need for those monies, then we'll come back to the group.
Okay. Do you want to start with 3410?
Sure.
Or you want to go through your budget? Yeah, your budget summaries first?
It's up to you. All of that stuff is already set. Let me look at salaries here. Under fire, you have the salaries for the 3 deputy fire coordinators, the maintenance helper down at the training center, and the, our deputy coordinator in charge of hazmat, Chief Schrammel. None of those have changed. Any questions?
Any questions from the floor? Hearing none, please continue then.
All right, well, I have the salary schedules in front of me. We'll do EMS. Our EMS coordinator and the 3 deputy EMS coordinators. Again, those numbers have not changed.
Okay. Now, Brian, what we have before us in our packets here may help the committee here is, as it's scrolling down after your cover sheet for the 2021 OES budget summary, we go into name and department, fire prevention and control, 3510. And then the next one is civil defense, 3640. So is that what you're discussing now?
I thought you wanted to go through salaries, which we basically have done. So let's go back to where we started. Those salaries are on page 22 if you're looking for them. Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Unless we have any areas where we have any increases, you should have seen the summary that we put out, which indicated where we had any increases or not. There's very little as far as increases to our budget. We have the usual equipment that we have to purchase for the deputy coordinator vehicles, replacing cell phones, all those kinds of things. We purchase or we budget for 1 replacement radio each year, trying to stay ahead of the curve as far as that goes. Mileage is down, which is good. Obviously, we're not using as much mileage. We also took out quite a bit of the travel expense and conferences. That's no longer, I don't see anything major changing in that world at this point. So that's for fire prevention. Any questions on the fire prevention one?
Hearing none, please continue.
Okay, the next one is civil defense. Under civil defense, again, the spending that we have there is very similar to what it always is, whether it be for the office supplies, which is toner, copier, and the paper stuff. We have in the past shared the cost of the printers with Stop DWI. Now that that is no longer going to be run near our office, I assume that whoever's taking that over, the sheriff's office, whoever, will have to budget for that. Other than that, again, mileage is down. Our usual cell phones, the modems that we use to collect our data for the vehicles, all of that stuff, the RACES equipment, those things are all the same. Unless somebody has a question on a particular item.
Brian, what does that stand for?
I'm sorry, Craig, I talked over you. Say that.
Oh, sorry. RACES, the acronym, what does that stand for everybody?
Video Amateur Emergency Service. These are the guys, amateur radio guys. Hams, thank you. The ham radio guys, depends on how you want to call them. This is a group that is, they are registered through my office. There's amateur radio guys, and then there's people that are part of the RACES group. The RACES group is made up of hams, but it is a specialized group. They have identifications from my office, and we have equipment stationed around that they use. The repeaters that they have on Prospect and Gore Mountain, Birch Mountain, those are all fall under my purview. And each year we try to upgrade that equipment a little bit. These are guys that are doing it as volunteers on the side. We try really hard not to force them to spend a lot of their own money for the equipment on the tower site.
And they are all part of a civil defense plan?
That's correct. They're included in our continuity of operations plan and our emergency plan. They're also included in the one for Glens Falls Hospital. They have a facility set up in their emergency center to provide communications. Every time the state Department of Health runs a communications drill, which is several times a year, I'm very pleased that a lot of the hospitals don't have that scenario where what we have installed at Glens Falls Hospital works very well, and people are impressed with that. So I'm pleased with that.
Good.
The only other thing on there, the USGS, we've talked about that. There was an increase this year for the USGS cost, $7,900 total per year. We still feel that that is an important line item. This is something that we should have. We have no other way to monitor that site.
And that's for floods, high rain events, that type of prediction, correct?
Whatever's happening on the Schroon River, that's correct. There's lots of times, we get alarms for this if we're not prepared and we're not aware. Rather, if we get a heavy storm, a lot of runoff, especially when there's still snow on the ground, and we see the Schroon going up dramatically, we get messages on that along with the National Weather Service. It's interesting. We're not the only ones that look at that site and get that information. However, we're the ones that are paying for it once the federal government decided they didn't want to pay for it anymore.
So,
I know you find that hard to believe.
yeah, it was beneficial last Halloween, though, I must admit, to be able to see what levels are and to be able to see projections of what may happen.
Yes, that dollar amount covers all the maintenance. They have their own people that come out and do monthly maintenance. That includes the cost of the satellite link that they use to send that data back to the internet. So there's costs that they have involved, plus any repairs.
Okay. Thank you. Fire Training Center?
Fire Training Center, again, our payroll there doesn't change. As far as if you see something that's confusing, i.e. page 8 under revenues, that's because this is a 50-50 match with Washington County. They put a duplicate amount of what we do in their budget, and we are the fiduciary, so any work that's done down there we pay for, and then we bill them quarterly and they reimburse us for their half of the project. So that number you see on page 8, that's actually reimbursement money. We don't have any other income there.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on fire training centers? Okay, let's go to Homeland Security.
These are pretty basic. There isn't a lot involved in these. This is the dollar amount we get for each one. It's confusing because these are 3-year grants. So what you see in expenses in a particular year won't add up to what the total was for that grant. Generally, the Homeland Security grants are around $60,000. We have to share that with the Sheriff's Office, with law enforcement. They get 25% of whatever the grant is that we receive. And so that's what that number, you'll see 52,000 there. If you need to know what we buy with those kinds of things, I can tell you what the 2021 is if you're interested.
Sure, that would be good information for the committee. Thank you.
Yes, the Homeland Security people, this is FEMA money. It's not the state of New York money. The state of New York runs the grant for them, but it's actually FEMA money. So anything that we do has to be approved by the state and by FEMA. They, year after year, they seem to be tightening up and more restrictive on the things we can buy or what we can do. In this last grant, they were very heavy into cybersecurity, security of our facilities, critical infrastructure. So the first item you see there for $16,000, that's actually a cybersecurity upgrade, all new equipment for our Board of Elections. Working with Mike Colvin and with Bill Vaness over at the Board of Elections, we determined that that was equipment they would need to increase the security of the electronics that they have there. Also, we have included here video monitoring for our tower sites. Our tower sites are considered critical infrastructure. Right now, we do not have cameras at our tower sites. And again, that's another security scenario. And the last item you see there is for a trailer to be, it actually has mounted to a tower, so that if we go somewhere and we need to set up a temporary repeater or whatever, it's a small unit, it's only 40 feet, but it gives us the ability to stand something up and have that for us in the event we have to set up something. If we have a search or we have something and we need to put a piece of equipment up that we need to put there, we'll have the equipment to get that antenna up where it needs to be.
And is that for radio?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The repeater that would normally go with that, we purchased out of last year's grant. So we have that piece of equipment. We're just looking for a way to get it up in the air. The only other thing on there you'll see under contract, that's the consultant necessary to design the system for the board of elections cybersecurity stuff.
And so that would be in effect in 2021.
No, that's in effect now. The question is when we get the contract. We have the official determination from the state that we have been awarded those monies. Once the contract is signed, at that point in time, we have access to those dollars.
Okay.
Remember, if we have to buy it, they reimburse us. Downside to there is. We have to spend the money and then we get reimbursed.
Okay. Any questions from the committee on this? Okay, on to Homeland Security.
The LEMPG grant, these are dollars that we use to augment the salary for the Emergency Services Coordinator, Amy's salary. This is what we've done for as long as I've been here. This is how some of the money for her salary is determined, both salary and fringe. So total out of there, you got 29,000, which we put towards her total salary that the county doesn't have to fund.
Okay.
The next one, our Hazmat Emergency Preparedness Grant. This is a grant that the 7 counties that make up our Hazmat Consortium, they each get a fraction of that, 1/7 of that. And it was determined that that small amount of money, if you divide that by 7, that amount of money really wasn't even worth applying for the grant. However, we work together and all of that money comes to us and we use that for the consortium. In this particular case, it's actually starting next week. We actually have an online training scenario and an online exercise, a simulator, which is really interesting. And those items were created and designed by our contractor, Tetra Tech, and that's what that money is for.
Okay. Is there a question? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on then to EMS.
EMS. Again, EMS is very similar as far as our normal dollars amount. In automotive equipment, you'll notice a slight increase there. It's not something that I am thrilled about, but it's something that we have to deal with. Many of my deputy coordinators, fire and EMS, are using lease vehicles, which means every 3 years we have to take the equipment out of one vehicle and put it in another one. And there is money involved in paying the contractor to do that work. If they switch vehicles, that means we have to sometimes change the equipment, different bracketing or whatever. So that's where you end up. We just ended up this year. Right now, I have 4 coordinators that are waiting to get their vehicles redone. So that's one of them. The 19,000, the one down at the bottom, the big one, that's the I Am Responding contract. That system is working well. They just offered us an update to that, which is, I believe I discussed this with the committee recently. Again, that's no charge. So that's the dollar amount that we've been paying since day one. Does anybody else see anything that jumps off the page at them that they would like to talk about?
Brian, just quick, responding in the towns that do not have great cell phone coverage? Are those departments still able to use these at all?
I'm sorry, Craig, say that again.
Right, the fire departments that do not have good cell phone coverage in their area, does IM responding work for them?
Not really. What we find is most of those agencies have good spots and bad spots.
Mhm.
It also is sent to their email if they happen to be at home. That stuff is available to them that way. Fortunately, the cell coverage seems to be improving. I was on a conference call last week with AT&T. They do have more sites set aside for this area and the Adirondacks. So it'll be interesting to see where we go with that. As always, you know, it's difficult in this area to get that. So they'll work off broadband, Wi-Fi. The system, the IM responding will work on any of those. So if they have access to any of those things, let's say they have Wi-Fi in their home that's brought to them via their cable provider or whatever, they do have the ability, their phone can connect to Wi-Fi and they will get the same information. Is it perfect? Most people know. And I'm hoping as we move along here, things will get better for that.
That's right. What does AT&T think their date of having all of the, what's the name of the program called? Something first? FirstNet?
Yes. FirstNet runs on AT&T towers. So any place where they put in a FirstNet site, we will also have cellular. Again, the problem there, as some of you are aware, if you're on any of the Adirondack Broadband Coalition, which I'm on, any of those devices, it needs fiber. Fiber optics really is what you need for high-speed data to go to the cell sites. So even though you may have a tower site that you want to put it at, if there is no good infrastructure there to bring the data to them, that's one more piece. So we're consciously right now working all the time, all the counties in our consortium to get more fiber to the tower sites. And AT&T is willing to co-locate if we have a tower that they like, and we are interested in allowing them to co-locate at that site and there's fiber. That can be an income stream also. At this point, Warren County has not worked on that. No, we have made a determination we didn't want to add cellular equipment to our towers, but down the road, it's a possibility as we add more towers. So that's something that would have to be looked at to see what the capability is in the tower and how much space they need.
Good. Thank you. I know they're adding one in Pottersville onto a tower. Okay. Any other questions on that item? Okay. Then we're down onto the salary schedules. Any questions on the committee on this? Any changes, Director LaFleur, you'd like to mention on these?
There are no changes.
So, there we go. Don, are there any questions from the public?
At this point, no, we have no public comment, Supervisor Late.
Thank you, Don. All right. Are there any more questions for Director LaFleur?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
thank you. I just wanted to commend OES for putting together a comprehensive budget summary page. For my eyes, it serves as a table of content and really valuable for me to do my own analysis when I can refer back to this and look at the highlights and major changes. So again, I appreciate the work that went into that.
You're welcome. I'll give you a quick story. You all
Sure.
know about the fire in Bolton, the Lakeside restaurant. It was a major fire. By the time it was all done, pretty much the restaurant was in the basement. We called the investigators from New York State due to the size of the loss, and they came there. They need to get to the stuff that's in the basement. At 6 feet of water in the basement, which makes it hard. What are we going to do? The fire department has a couple small pumps. They can't do a lot. I called for the pump that we just recently purchased that I described to you recently. Soil and Water, who is overseeing that pump, brought it over. Within an hour, we were set, and we pumped that 6 feet of water out in 45 minutes. The investigators were able to do the job. So it does show that one more thing that I had hoped we could use that unit for.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Who knew? All right. Well, if there's no other further questions from the committee for Office of Emergency Services, we'll let you go, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
And next up will be Sheriff LaFar.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sheriff. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I have a few items on our agenda. The first two are requests for part-time patrol officer positions. The first one being for the service of civil fingerprints. That would be to assist applicants that need to be fingerprinted for pistol permits, state liquor licenses, Department of Education, nurses, etc. This is something where we've had an update to our software for our electronic fingerprints, live scan our station in-house. So it's something we can provide to the public. It is something where we will not need to ask for any money in the budget. What will happen is we will charge the public, as does a private vendor currently, will charge at their same rate. And we'll pay an amount out of an escrow account to the Division of Criminal Justice Services, and the remainder will generate a small amount of revenue for the county. This is something that initially we hope to start out with 3 days a week, 24 hours a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, have a regular schedule so the public can count on us being available to them, and we can adjust as need be. And speaking with Pam Vogel, their average for actual fingerprint submissions, not applications handed out to residents, but the actual submissions has been over 400 a year for the past several years. So this is something we're confident we would be able to sustain in the future.
Okay, who can bring this to the floor? Motion, bring this to the floor. Supervisor Simpson, second, please. Looking for a second on this.
I can second if I'm on this committee.
Thank you, Supervisor Bramer. Let's see here. Yes, you are. So, okay. Motion is on the floor. Discussion? Supervisor Sieber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had an opportunity to speak with both Jim and Terry regarding this, and while I certainly give the innovative credit to looking at where perhaps there's a need in our community and responding to it, I'm not so sure that it's a necessary element of the sheriff's office right now, but I was much more comfortable with the idea of it being a per diem versus a new part-time position, and spoke with HR regarding the classification of per diem, much like I believe it was changed for the position in the kitchen, if I'm not mistaken. But I know there's been a lot of talk and a lot of discussion about, as we create positions, they're very difficult to delete. I mean, while it seems easy at face value, we've been having this discussion a lot over the budget meetings. And I'm always hesitant, especially during this time, to be creating more positions, even if they're part-time. But when they rely on a revenue stream that perhaps wouldn't be consistent. I mean, I think in some years we'll see more applications that would pay for the position and the cost, and then other years, you have someone obligated to a certain number of hours. I guess I just wonder what happens. I mean, we've had more and more talks about, even if your grants go away, people still have certain rights under civil service and other areas in our county, that it's not as simple as just saying the grant goes away, the revenue stream goes away, the person goes away. That's not, I think, fair to employees or fair to the taxpayer. So I've had questions about this. I know you brought it up a month or two ago. I thought it was something we were looking at next year, but I would be much more comfortable seeing this as a per diem versus a new part-time position. But maybe, Jim, you could just explain a little bit more about why you decided to create a new part-time position versus going into that per diem bucket, I think is how Jackie explained it to me when I had asked her.
Of course.
Thanks.
The position from last month for the kitchen, that's going to be something that's as needed. We currently still have an employee who's out, and we have a hardship in our correctional facility in the kitchen. So that being a per diem position, it makes sense. It's going to come and go. We may go years and never utilize that part-time position, but having it available when we need to, rather than having to go back to committee and through the board to wait a couple months to fill it, it really makes sense. This one here being a part-time position, there's always going to be a need. And if January 1st, 2021, we stopped making civil fingerprint submissions and there's no longer a need, then we don't have a part-time employee, but it's not the come and go type of per diem position. They're quite different.
And the type of person that would be filling this part-time position, what do you envision?
A part-time patrol officer. This person's going to be in working with Kate Whitaker and coming and going through our arrest processing area. So we feel it'd be best served to be a part-time retired patrol officer.
Supervisor Sieber, did that answer your question?
It did. I mean, I think I still have, obviously, Craig, before we came to the meeting today, I had asked questions and tried to do some homework just to get more information about this. And everyone has given me information about what I've asked for. I'm just, you know, I'm not sure I'm comfortable enough with it to vote yes here today. But thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Ryan and then Brad. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a number of questions, so maybe Brad wants to go first.
Okay, Supervisor McGowan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, I like this idea in the sense of, I know we need the fingerprinting and everything that is involved. I have to agree with Rachel is, you know, putting us in a position where it's part-time, especially during the economic crunch that we're under. So I guess my question is going through the process of being fingerprinted on my own and not for being forced to do it, it's because I needed to. Just want to get that on the record. And you know, why we couldn't set up you know, the appointments, you know, certain appointment times to do it at variation, you know, and do it in a sense that way instead of 3 days a week for so many hours. Because I mean 400 divided by 365 days in a year. You know, then you take out the weekends. I understand that, but you know, and then that way it would be easier to do it on a per diem, is saying, all right, you know, 1 week, you know, be on a Monday, another week would be on a Wednesday, and the following week on a Friday. You know what I'm saying? You know, so many. Is that a possible thing?
The company that provides the service now works out of a cubicle in the back of Staples. And when they're not available, our county residents have to travel either to Wilton or Ticonderoga to get the fingerprints completed like you're going through or just recently went through now. To try to schedule appointments with someone, the person who would receive and be making the appointments would be this part-time person. And if they're only working some days on a Tuesday or a Thursday, I don't know how they would receive the phone calls to schedule these appointments. Our thought was to put out something to our public. The Pistol Permit Bureau would put out information on dates and times when we're available here. And I think our public would get into a routine or a pattern of knowing every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I can make an appointment or stop by the sheriff's office and see if I can get my fingerprints taken. We have people stop regularly now, and we're not set up to receive and submit the fingerprints yet. So I know there's a need. When this company, they used to work out of the sheriff's office. And on the days that they were here over the course of several years, we had a private vendor working out of the county in a county facility making significant revenue and it was a revolving door all day long. They're just, people were in and out all day long. So I'll defer to all of you. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. We won't do it. But I'm confident it will be work, and it will work, and it'd be a good service for our residents.
One more, Supervisor McGowan.
No, that was good logic, because I remember when I did it, I mean, like I said, there was a certain time that I came in and you know, like I said, I really just wanted to ask the question. I actually think if you feel that, you know, this would be a revenue and not a cost to the county, I would feel happy on moving this forward.
Okay. Ryan, if I may, call on Supervisor Diamond. He has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize, Jim, for coming in late. And I do have some questions around this part-time position you're looking to create. You mentioned that there's an independent company or private company that already conducts this type of business. My question is, why would the county want to be competing with these tough economic times with the private sector in a position in this type of work where we're going to have to put on more help in order to fulfill this responsibility? Is it, if in fact the county chose to do this, what personally I don't want to compete with the private sector, knowing the economy, the way the economy is, at least we should attempt to try to do this in-house without creating new positions. That would be my thought.
Okay, I understand that. I just believe that we could provide a better service, a more stable service to our residents with more consistency. It's something that was recently made available to us just based upon the inquiries that we receive and the demand that I know we have in our county. I'm not trying to compete, but I think we could provide a really valuable service. It's something we used to do. Our residents relied on us for years, and then when we went to electronic fingerprint submissions, the software that we had in the past wouldn't allow us to perform the function, and now we can. As far as trying to handle this with current staffing, again, we would have to have somebody available to receive the phone calls, to schedule the appointments, to be available to do the prints. The police officers, they're all out in the police cars. The investigators are all tied up. I don't know who in-house we would have each of these days to accommodate our residents.
Don't you have existing administrative staff that could help out on a part-time basis to fulfill this requirement?
I wish we did. I mean, we work hard here at the sheriff's office, and our administrative staff is pretty well tasked.
Okay. And again, how much revenue are you projecting you're going to receive on an annual basis?
Every submission that goes to DCJS is $88.25. If we charge $120 for an applicant, we receive $31.75 per submission. And if you multiply that by over 400 just for the pistol permits, that will add up quickly. I know that certain county employees who work in DMV, they're nurses, they're required to be fingerprinted, and I know the county pays for this service. If even they're saving $31.75, and even for every employee that's required to get printed, there's not only revenue, but there's a savings for the county. I understand that the times we're in, and you don't want to create positions, which is like I say, I'm going to present this to you. Again, if you don't want to do it, we don't do it. I'm not looking to add on work. We're just, again, we thought this would be a good thing for our residents.
Thank you. Ryan, do you mind if I take Supervisor Bramer first? Okay. Supervisor Bramer?
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, I had asked Jim, or the Sheriff of LaVar, via email, I think, about revenue, but I think he kind of covered it with the 400, at least 400 pistol permits. That's a year. My math says that's only $12,000. Not only, but I'm wondering, between this new position and if you're pulling other administrative staff, will the revenue from this really cover the costs? Because we always talk about, this came up on Friday too, unfunded mandates from the state. This isn't something we have to do. So I'm hesitant to do it unless we really are going to get the revenue that will cover the cost. Thank you.
Sheriff, any response?
Nope, it's, like I said, it's hard to predict. If we started this process and realized that we only needed to have a scheduled date 1 day a week, then we would go down to 1 day a week. Our plan is not to have somebody in-house sitting in an office just waiting for people to come. We would adjust accordingly. It's really, right now, as I said, it's a hard thing to project.
So is that really more per diem? Sorry, Chairman.
Well, I don't know that you put an hour, you attach an hour to a position. I think it is a part-time position. Per diem, my understanding is come and go, but again, what you call it, it's just semantics to me. It doesn't matter. I don't care how you title the position.
Ryan?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So the $88 goes to the state, correct, Sheriff?
Yes,
Well, and what would the proposed fee be if the county does this?
$120.
120. What is the fee of the current provider?
I believe it's $120. I know Washington County does this. They charge $120, and I believe it's either Identigo or Morphotrust, and I believe that's what they charge currently. There is a schedule for other fingerprint submissions. Again, State Liquor Authority, Department of Education. We would adjust our schedule for those prints accordingly.
Who is the provider here in Warren County?
Again, it's either Identigo or Morphotrust. I think they've changed several times. I think their current name is Identigo.
What is their current schedule? Do we know?
I don't.
What is
but,
their?
Pam will know that because Pam will have that. She provides the information to the pistol permit applicants.
What's their current volume? How many are they doing a year?
A little over 400. As far as just for the pistol permits, I don't know what they're doing. I wouldn't have any way to find out what other prints they're doing.
Then you're talking that private vendor is doing 400 a year.
Just in Warren County for the pistol permits, yes.
How long does it take to process one of these applications?
All they're doing is receiving, fingerprinting, and making an electronic submission. So if it took 20 minutes, that would be, I think, a long time.
All right. So if we were to take all of that business and, had a 50% increase, we're talking 600 applications a year. So what kind of time really is that going to be?
I'd have to sit and crunch the information.
So would it be the idea that this position would only do this stuff, or would the position do other things in the sheriff's department as well?
We're not looking to supplement any other positions. We thought about maybe seeing if Kate could do something like this, but she is really tasked with doing the background investigations, and we don't want to water those down. Again, we would look at it, monitor it. We planned on keeping a log of all the work that we're doing. And if it looks like our volume is low, we'll decrease our hours. If it looks like we need to add hours, we'll have a conversation and we might add hours.
Did you say, I apologize if I missed it, did you say that you had an initial ask as to how many hours a week?
Brian, I'm sorry, I lost you after you said, did you say?
Did you say that there's an initial ask as to how many hours per pay period for this position?
Our initial thought was just 3 days a week, having a scheduled Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We may want to ease our way into that, just start with 1 day a week and work our way up until the public realizes. But if we add this information into the packet that the Pistol Permit Bureau gives out, every one of those applicants should be coming to the sheriff's office.
So a day, how many hours would a day be? Would it be a full 7-hour day or 8-hour day?
That would be the plan.
Okay, so it was somewhere between 1 day and 3 days a week starting off. So we can calculate out how many hours that equates to in a year as opposed to the workload that you expect them to take on. And if they do take on that workload, let's say they just do 400 a year, we can calculate out the revenues, so we can take, more of a mathematical rather than a speculative approach as to whether or not we're going to meet the projections, correct?
Yes.
All right. What about what do other counties do that do this in-house? Do they all do it with a law enforcement position, or do they do it with clerical positions?
Lieutenant Smith reached out to Washington County and he got their information, some of their details. I don't know the position in-house who takes care of it. And every county sheriff's office is quite different. Some oversee the entire pistol permit process. But I know many do the electronic fingerprint submissions. That would be something I'd have to make some phone calls.
Would this position be included in the union and subject to the union increases that we negotiate?
No.
All right. I think that's about all I had.
Okay, then I'll recognize,
I did have one other question, Mr. Chairman. In terms of I understand that this will be budget neutral because the revenue is hopefully going to cover the expense. But I assume that there's no appropriation in the budget right now for this. And I know that there's no appropriation in the budget request. So we will have to have a budget amendment to attach expense authority, or else you won't have dollars in the budget to pay this payroll. So we will have to have some idea of what the hours are going to be, and so that we can do a budget amendment, revenues and expenses. I think that needs to be worked out.
Yes, and to make this work, the best way I could describe it is we'd have to have a type of an escrow account, a rolling account with the Division of Criminal Justice Services, so that every submission that they receive, they're immediately going to take funds out of this account, and we'd have to keep that supplied. So really, this is going to come out of a separate code, I think, revenue and expenses.
How quickly can they submit that money to us? I mean, what's the turnaround? I assume we're going to do we get the full difference between the 120 and the 88?
Well, what would happen is we would have somebody actually pay with a check here or go to the treasurer's office and make payment in cash. So we're going to receive the funds immediately. And then every time a submission is made, they will take out their share of $88.25.
So that we would essentially, I mean, and that doesn't necessarily have to be an escrow agreement unless they want it to be, but we would essentially be doing an escrow for their benefit. Is that correct?
It's my understanding, Lieutenant Smith talked with Rob Lynch, and they want to have access to an account. So he wouldn't want them to have access to any county budget accounts. So it would be a separate bank account that we would allow them to access directly.
All right, we're going to need a resolution on that piece of it as well to go through finance, correct?
Yes.
All right, so there's a personnel aspect here in terms of creating the position. There's a budget amendment aspect to this. There's also a finance aspect to this in getting an escrow agreement. I think that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
okay, thank you, Brian. First, Supervisor Garrity, then Driscoll, then McGowan. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just not happy with the title. I mean, if you create a patrol officer, you're creating a patrol officer. If you're creating a civil worker, create a civil worker. But I mean, this adds to the PVA if you call it a patrol officer. And I don't think we really talked at length about this, Jim. I really feel that we need a lot more information to come forward to advance this. Also, would this only be done down here at the county center?
Yes.
I'm just not comfortable with the position right now.
Okay.
Supervisor Driscoll?
I'll withdraw my question, but I wanted to point out that I have accessed the services, I think, down at Staples on 2 or 3 occasions. And potentially I could see the county possibly doubling the number of individuals that we currently serve. So, but I would agree with Supervisor Garrity. Possibly we should discuss this further.
Okay, Supervisor McGowan?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Jim, thank you.
Speak up. Having a hard time hearing you, Brad.
Oh, sorry. Jim, thank you. I don't think you expected to go into depth here, but due to our times and crunching, but I have to agree with Kevin Garrity. And the other thing I was thinking on appointments and that, we have set up things with DMV where you can go online and there's slots open and people can put in their slots at the times that they can come in. So these are the times that are available, on certain days. So maybe we can simplify the process so someone's not sitting there waiting for a phone to ring. Because mostly everything's done online. So I really think that if we put some more thought in this, I think this really could work out for all of us. So thank you again for your time.
Yeah.
Well, if I can summarize here, Sheriff, I think you have an innovative proposal here. It needs some more work before the committee would act on it. So where do you say we leave it where it is right now and continue some of this background work?
Very good.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman? You do have
Yes.
a motion and a second on the floor. I don't know if you prefer
Oh,
to
gosh.
put on it or see if there's a withdrawal of that. So yeah, I'm not sure what the protocol is. I don't have my book with me today.
Boy, thank you for keeping me on track there, Supervisor Sieber. Yes, we have a motion and a second. So at this point, we can either vote it up or down or recognize a table for it.
Not sure who made the first, but I'm.
I did. I can remove the motion off the floor.
Okay.
There's the
Recognize
second.
that. And Supervisor Bramer, as a second, would you recognize to remove this from the floor?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Motion is withdrawn.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm so sorry to ask this again, but I really am trying to get up to speed on my Robert's rules. Mary, is that the appropriate way to handle that?
I honestly don't know. I don't have my Robert's rules in front of me either.
And I'm just gonna ask for our training.
So, yeah, this is getting down into some of the fine points. Hang on a sec.
There you go, Craig. Thank you. I can do both.
Let me see if I can find it here.
I just want, I applaud the innovative thinking. I just think there's a lot more discussion that needs to take place. And also in the times that we're in right now, I mean, everything we're looking at should be a need and not a want. And, like I said, there's lots of great discussions down the road, but we just had the budget meetings and when our budget officer is saying he's not comfortable at this point, then, I don't know if it's a matter of voting it down or just, I prefer not to have it as a pending item until we have more information on it.
Right. So I think by withdrawing it, that would be appropriate. The person that moves it and seconds it, if they withdraw their support of it being on the floor, I think that would be appropriate for us at this point in time, unless there is objection from the committee. Then hearing no objection, we'll just let it rest. Unless there's other protocol that I'm not sure of. Somebody wants to chime in?
It says when a motion is withdrawn, the effect is the same as if it has never been made.
You're fast there, Supervisor Sieber.
I'm grateful for the internet.
Okay, good. On to number 2, Sheriff.
The second item is very similar. It's requesting a part-time position, patrol officer position, to oversee the Stop DWI program. Something that has been asked if the sheriff's office can oversee that with retirement of Patty Miller.
Okay. I'll ask for a motion to bring this to the floor. But maybe before I do that, Ryan, can you inform the board of this transition from when Patty Miller had the Stop DWI program to where it is today?
I sure will. We got a notification 2 weeks ahead of Patty's resignation, letting us know that that was her 2 weeks notice that she wasn't going to continue at the county. And it was not to get into reasons, but I did have a conversation to see if it was something I said, is it something we did or something we said? And the answer was, like a lot of people during the virus, you spend more time at home, your life patterns change. And Patty came to the realization that family and other things were more important, and she just didn't. Because I tried to convince her to stay because she did such a great job with the program, but staying definitely was not in the cards. So we were in the midst of doing the deficit reduction planning, which we started in April. We really hadn't been able to do all that much in Stop DWI and traffic safety, but with Patty announcing that she was not going to stay, and then getting into a position where we were going to have her spots vacant for a while, it did present an opportunity to do more deficit reduction in those areas. So in the context of all of that, we basically said, we need to figure out first and foremost how we're going to get the 2021 budget done, knowing that we're not going to be able to hire a new department head within the short amount of time that it was going to be when the budgets got started. If memory serves, I think Patty left in early to mid-July, and that's already into the budget cycle. So Patty was handling 3 different areas for the county. One of them was Indigent Legal Services grant. She was doing a little bit of help for Joy LaFountain, assigned counsel, and also the traffic safety and DWI. So we basically scrambled a meeting to see in the meantime whether there were any existing county employees that knew a little bit about those areas that could pick up when Patty left and get the immediate budget and deficit reduction work done. So the Sheriff's Department agreed to pick up the Stop DWI and the traffic safety piece. And we initially had some thoughts about the assigned counsel, but Joy preferred to keep that all in-house. So Joy is handling all of that within her department still. That's just a thumbnail on how we got here with the sheriff coming up with a proposal on how to do Stop DWI going forward.
And at this point, the undersheriff has been overseeing the budget for this and any of the programming needs, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And one of the reasons that I think the sheriff's office looked at this is because other counties, certainly not all other counties, but some other counties do have this housing in the sheriff's department.
Okay. And Sheriff, for this part-time patrol officer for the Stop DWI program, this is in your proposed 2021 budget?
Yes. Well, it's a separate budget item, but yes.
Right. Yes, as we'll see a little later. Okay. I'll ask for a motion to bring this to the floor.
Mr. Chairman, before you ask for that, I'm not making a motion to bring it to the floor. I'm just wondering how we're having discussion about it before there's a motion to bring it to the floor.
What the county administrator provided was context for this motion. There was a change. I know there was a question out there previous to the meeting of how is it that the Stop DWI program is now under the Sheriff's Department umbrella. It had been a standalone, or nearly. Patty Miller had a run of it. I think it was under. Was it under OES? But so there's been a shift, so that we're all clear on why the Stop DWI program is coming up under the sheriff's agenda right now. That was the reason for
At that point, though, then I guess I do have a question about Patty Miller's position, or previous position. I need to stop calling it Patty's position.
Okay.
And perhaps our administrator can answer these questions for me. It was my understanding that she, in essence, was a department head. Is that correct?
Yeah, she to the extent, like if I send out a department head email or have a department head meeting, Patty would always come to those meetings. She was a little bit different in certain respects. She didn't have a staff that reported to her, and she was part-time rather than full-time.
Okay, so we are now looking at the duties that she once acquired and farming it out in essence to 3 different departments.
2.
Well, she did the Stop DWI. She worked with the grant administrator with Joy, and she worked with the grant administrator with Brian McClure and OES, right? Didn't she do some work there?
Yeah, but I think you said we're assigning it to 3 departments. We'd be assigning it to 2. with the sheriff's department and the assigned counsel department. And the work that she did under assigned counsel was always under assigned counsel. So essentially what we're doing is when it was her, she was her own department, stop DWI / traffic safety, assigned counsel, and the sheriff's department. We're essentially going from 3 down to 2.
And I just thought when we were at budget meetings the other day that there was still some residual dollars or being transferred into another department from that in OES. It's just catching me off guard after the budget meetings the other day. I know we talked quite a bit about her position, that funding. I just want to make sure we aren't taking a part-time position and now creating these other positions, and we're now on the hook for more money than what we were utilizing before.
I think I believe Patty's work for OES did not continue into 2020. I believe that they went a different direction in the first place. That's why Patty had time that was available for her to jump in and help Joy on indigent legal services.
Okay, and that position was never a sworn officer. She was a civilian, obviously, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Jack. I keep jumping in front of you. Mr. Chairman, Jack had a question that
Supervisor Diamond?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question for the county administrator. When it was discussed back in July about the sheriff's department undertaking the responsibility of the Stop DWI program, which to me makes a lot of sense, was it also discussed at that time that we'd be looking at creating a new position in regards to that?
No, that was not discussed. I think it was a possibility that was contemplated, but we would have no way of knowing whether the sheriff's office would think that it was needed until the sheriff's office had some time under their belt picking up those duties and trying to manage them. It was kind of a wait and see. They said, we'll pick it up. We'll do the next year's budget. We'll try to come up with a plan going forward if these duties are going to be housed in the sheriff's department, but whether or not that's going to require dedicated staff or whether we can do it with existing staff, we just don't know yet because we need to do the work and get comfortable with what it is.
So we're at this point in time, we're doing it with the undersheriff.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So just one more follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, Supervisor Sieber.
Is there a rush to this? I mean, I'd like to hear from our budget officer, especially because we did talk about this. I think he stepped out, but maybe as you mentioned, County Administrator Moore, getting a little time and getting comfortable with this. She just left in July. I know Terry told me at the budget meetings he was working on this right now, but I guess I'm confused why it would have to be a part-time position again, and a patrol officer in particular. My hesitancy to create positions of any sort during this time still remains. But Kevin, you stepped out. I was just asking on your opinion as it related to the request in front of us.
Well, I'm not comfortable creating positions, and then we got to look at the DWI and get a grasp of that whole thing. How much time that's going to require. But the other thing, I don't think we can, in good conscience, put another patrol officer on at this time. We already had that discussion during budget, not to create positions. I thought, maybe I'm missing something. I think, Ryan, you concur?
Here's my impression. When we discussed the DWI and the traffic safety budget, the department didn't necessarily have it fleshed out as to what titles would be or what salaries would be, but they were fairly confident that they could do it for a lower amount of money, personal services, than it was when Patty was doing it. So okay. What we had done is we penciled in, I don't have my notes for that particular department in front of me, but we penciled in a lower amount of money than what it would have been had Patty continued on. And I think we ended up saving something like $3,000 to $5,000. Sheriff or Terry, correct me if I'm wrong. But that's the only detail we had up to this point. We hadn't really fleshed out anything beyond the couple $1,000s of savings that the sheriff's office thought we could realize.
Is this a mandated position?
It's a mandated service, but it's not mandated as to how you staff it.
Okay. And we have some discretion on the duties of what is done, the programming for this?
Yeah, within reason. Within reason. I mean, they have to abide by the grant guidelines.
Yeah. Sorry. At our budget meeting, Undersheriff, you had presented a budget for this, and I thought it was in our packet here today, but I don't see it. Am I 9/11? Law enforcement. Yeah, we just have the three major ones.
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at my cut notes, and the reduction that I took in traffic safety was $1,152. So multiply that by 3, and that would be the estimated savings across both programs. I'm doing that right now. So yeah, it was $3,456 was the estimate as to what the sheriff's department thought they could save. But again, that didn't have any hourly rate or any position title on it. So whether or not that ends up being the number, I'm not sure.
Mr. Moore, Mr. Leggett, can you hear me now by chance?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I did have a proposal. I can't, in the budget worksheets, I can't, change employee benefits or anything like that, but I do believe there'll be a significant savings on a part-time basis. We won't pay, obviously, employee benefits as far as into retirement or anything like that. And salaries. The salary between the two, Stop DWI and the traffic safety, was right around $18,000 for the two titles or two positions. And I believe for certain we can save more, a good chunk of that. And I had thought about somewhere between a 15 and 20% reduction in that whole budget. So we could get just to see, and that would keep us safe just going backwards to 2016 where the expenditures were, just looking at that. A few things that have been done already. The grants have been applied for and appear accepted. So that's set, and I'm currently working on next year's Stop DWI plan to move forward with that. That's due October 1st. So I plan to have that finished here this week and submitted. So there's a few things that have it's gone forward. I just did not want to see the program fail with not being able to get somebody in here to work it. So.
Good. And can you inform us on what the revenues are for this program?
Right now, if I go backwards, I think the revenues we had stayed pretty much close to the same. I looked at last year's was 145,916 for the Stop DWI program. I believe the fines will fall. There is no debtor's prison anymore. So from what I understand, my limited understanding of this is if you don't pay your DWI fine, then your license is suspended, but that's it. There's no warrants for arrest or anything like that. So I believe some of the DWI fines will go down. It looks like the state money will be the same, which is between $10,000 and $15,000, and that's going to be on the traffic safety side, I believe. Yes, it looks like that. And I would anticipate somewhere about 145,000 this year in revenue, or I'm sorry, for next year in revenues, hopefully. So.
Okay. So basically, the revenues will cover the cost of the coordinator?
I would.
The county.
Somebody to come to fill in. Oh yeah, for sure. That would not be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, that with a little amount. Mm-hmm.
With all that information, what's the board's pleasure, the committee's pleasure? Shall we bring this to the floor? Supervisor Garrity?
No, I have nothing.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman, Jack Diamond. On those revenue streams that Under Sheriff Cuomo mentioned, aren't those monies being dispersed to other communities also? Or is that money directly going into the county itself and not the rest of the community? It's my understanding that the city used to get their DWI monies through the county. Isn't that true? So that $140,000 that you mentioned is being distributed to other police agencies through the county.
Yeah, yes, sir. Through Glens Falls. There is a note on there. I did add to the budget summary sheet. It shows where the disbursements are contractually right now, to the DA's office, to probation, and to Glens Falls PD as well as the sheriff's office. So that splits the money up. The DA's office, nobody's asked for any more money than what they received this year. So, and we pretty much said we'd be okay with that. So hopefully we can get, we can get those revenues to where we split it up, where we get the DWI fines in and able to make sure everybody gets their allotted amount.
So how much would be left for the county's use for DWI?
If I look at this year right now, right now they're about $6,000, it looks like, and that included the salaries. So it was around $6,000 is what we have right now. We haven't spent another dime. Well, I have not sent out any other monies to anybody, and I think, if I look at this correctly, yeah, right around $6,000.
Okay, thank you.
$6,000 to $8,000. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, Supervisor Sieber?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I still, just for the record, am very uncomfortable having all these discussions. Again, we don't have a motion, we don't have a second, but we're going to talk apparently specifically about creating this new part-time position. So I'm going to redirect my question both to our county administrator, to the undersheriff.
Supervisor Sieber, if I may just interrupt there, I was asking for a motion to bring it to the floor, but
that was appropriate about 20 minutes ago. No one made it, and we've still had discussion. So my question isn't about the motion any longer, but let me know an appropriate time where I can ask the question about the position.
Yeah, yeah. I'll ask again, anybody, any committee member would like to bring this to the floor?
I'll bring it to the floor so that you can discuss it. If there's a second.
Is there a second? Sounds like it dies for a second. Okay. What's the committee's pleasure? I think we should at least wrap up the conversation on this. Yes, Supervisor Sieber.
Thank you. May I ask my question now?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is specifically that this position for DWI, which I think is a very, very important program and does incredible work within our communities, but oftentimes in the DA's office and other departments, we see add-on responsibilities to current administrative staff who are not only well-organized, multitasked, but sometimes their pay doesn't reflect all the duties that they're doing. I know a few years ago, we were able to get out of the idea of stipends, and in rare circumstances, much like Patty's position, there were different stipends that were given to current and existing staff where a patrol officer doesn't need to be created or a part-time position doesn't need to be done. I don't know if that's something that perhaps we could be looking at, but for such a small salary, you know, the $6,000 coming back in for this, it just doesn't seem warrant. To me, it doesn't warrant a new part-time patrol officer position. But I do hope that we take a look at existing staff and positions and what they're currently having on their plate. I know that's done in other departments.
Okay, thank you. Ryan, your input on this for filling this position and timeliness. It seems that the committee doesn't have a desire to bring it onto the floor at this point in time. You have any thoughts or recommendations?
Sure. I mean, we can go back to the drawing board with staff. We can talk about this proposal. We can talk about any other ways to do it. We'll get together with the sheriff. We'll figure something out. We'll get together with the budget officer, make sure that when we discuss this next, that everybody is a little bit more on the same page.
Again, and there is a budget that goes along with this program. Do we have this in our agenda packets anywhere?
No,
No?
I don't see it. I don't see it. This is Kevin. I don't see it.
Because that could help. Okay. As by taking no action today, does this delay the adoption of the budget for the, okay.
No.
So we can still proceed. We can still look at projected revenues and expected expenses for 2021 budget. It will all be in place. And then we can come back with answers for the committee. Is that correct?
That's right. This is the Stop DWI budget is always adopted in balance. The expenses do not exceed the revenues. So, we could have a position in there. We could have no position in there and amend the budget at the appropriate time when the board decides what they would like. But we're flexible on that. The only time constraint that I would think of is if we were going to go out and hire somebody, is there a lapse of time between posting it and getting somebody in the position? So, but time on the budget, I'm not concerned about that. The budgets can always be amended.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Leggett?
Yes, Sheriff.
Just to clarify to the supervisors, this isn't anything that we sought out, and to be quite honest with you, it's nothing we're thrilled to be overseeing. We will do it. It does seem like it's an appropriate fit for our sheriff's office to try to add on duties that, you had a department head filling out before and just expect that our staff can just oversee this, have a coordinator. It's a big ask. And Stop DWI relates to DWI, driving while intoxicated, driving while impaired. It relates to traffic safety. So the best position for this is an experienced police officer who has experience in DWI enforcement and traffic safety. It's not just a coordinator that's going to pencil in numbers for a grant. They're going to go out and speak to our public. They've got real world experience. A part-time patrol officer is not a member of the bargaining unit for the PBA. They're only full-time members, so it has nothing to do with the PBA. If the sheriff's office is going to do this, we're going to do it with a part-time patrol officer. If you'd prefer to have another department or another group oversee it, we are absolutely fine with that.
Thank you. Well, for the lack of a motion, I think we need to move on then, and we will continue to work on this, Sheriff.
Okay.
Thank you. Request number 3.
Number 3 is a request to extend our contract with Black Creek Integrated Services. They are our software and support systems for the inmate records management system. It's an agreement for a 3-year period, and the amounts for each of those 3 years is indicated.
Okay, motion to bring it to the floor. And this is a renewal of a contract, correct?
Yes.
So we have been doing this.
Yes.
We'll bring that to the floor.
Bring it to the floor.
Thank you. I'll take Supervisor Bramer as a first and Supervisor Simpson as a second. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Quickly, correctional facility inmate populations, and then we'll go to budget.
our population as of this morning is 83, so it continues to climb.
Wow. Okay. All right, we'll have everybody turn to the budget sheets here.
Chairman Ryder, can I ask one quick question?
Yes, Supervisor Garrity.
How many board-ins do we have in that 83, Jim?
24.
Wait, thank you.
That's good. Okay, Sheriff's 9/11 Center.
Yes, sir. I don't know if you want me to go down through it line by line, or if you have questions. This budget is pretty much same as to last year. Our amended budget for 2020 was $2,379,000, and our ask for 2021 is $2,383,529. Really no significant changes either way as you go through each code.
Okay, are we on the 9/11?
3020 Sheriff's 911 Center.
Yes. Yeah, department requests, the totals $2,310,952.
2021 is $2,383,529.
Oh, you know what? I think we have in our packet here the 2020 request. There's on that summary sheet. Sorry.
Yeah, he may have signed along, the numbers in the summary sheet may be incorrect, or they may be the wrong one. Jimmy?
Wrong one.
Yeah, you signed, it didn't update. I think you just got the wrong cover sheet, Jim.
Okay. And I'm sure that's the same for each of the three. My apologies.
Yeah.
That's okay.
The amended budget, and I'll bring over a signed updated copy. The amended budget for last year was $2,379,003, and our request for this year is $2,383,529.
Yeah, your detail sheets are correct. But...
Okay.
383. So on that net grand totals. Okay. It looks like if we go on to the, what page is that? No page. Budget worksheet, budget year 2021, net grand totals, 2021 request is.
There's actually a reduction.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay. Any
All
questions
right.
for the 9/11 Center from the committee?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yes, Jack,
Supervisor Diamond?
I've got a question, Jim. Under
Yes,
your stream, you're requesting or proposing $325,000 in revenue for 2021. Your year-to-date actual is 228, 6450. That's almost $100,000 less. What's changed where you're projecting your revenue stream is going to be almost 100,000 higher?
Looking at our percentage for the year, we're already at 96% under 1142, and we're right about where we needed to be for 1140, the general. We projected last year 165. We're already at, as of the end of the month, we're at 158 under the one. That is just looking at it and working with our communications staff, that's where we anticipate the revenue will come in.
Is that the track phones?
Yes. Well, the one is the cell service self charges, and one of them being track phone.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. And Supervisor Diamond,
Yes.
in our budget meeting, you had made a request, and I haven't forgotten, to provide you with a list of our contracts. When
Yes.
when I pull up our log under WECES, it really doesn't give as much information as you'd like. I'm sure it doesn't provide a lot of figures. So I've been going through contract by contract and putting together my own table, and I hope to have that completed and out to you in the next couple days.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sheriff.
Yes.
Okay, no other questions on communications, then Sheriff's Law Enforcement, 3110.
Yes, sir. Again, going through those, you know, there's not a lot of significant changes when you go line by line. When you get down to 444, education and travel, we're asking for $50,000 for the upcoming year. That's taking into account our annual dues for the academy. We have 3 new public safety divers that are going to have to go through their entire gamut of training to be certified as a basic diver and then become master scuba divers. And we have some new members to our traffic safety unit, as well as I know there's going to be some expectations for us to provide some training to our members for de-escalation and certain things that apply to the governor's executive order that we have to respond to by next April. So that is a bit of a jump, but I mean, that's something that I'm confident we will need and will definitely utilize. Looking at it overall, our amended budget for law enforcement for last year was $12,715,260. Our ask for 2021 is $12,559,295, so it's a bit of a decrease.
Okay. Any questions for the sheriff on law enforcement? And that training aspect is a good one. You have a lot of work ahead of you with Executive Order 203.
Yes, sir. And just to touch on that, I know that is something that, you know, it's due next April, which will mean we'll have to get it through our full board for the month of March. We've already started working on things here at the sheriff's office. You know, a big key component of that reform is connecting with the public and our community and, you know, getting feedback from them. But if they really don't know what we do, they wouldn't really have any suggestions for improvement or, you know, areas where they could see we would improve. So we're going to start the process of connecting with our community, reaching out, having meetings, doing presentations. And if any of you have any suggestions for groups you'd like with us to meet with, we will. We're going to take care of that over the next 2 or 3 months. And then I know we'll have a requirement to sit down with some stakeholders. So we'll be putting together a group of stakeholders to crunch the information that we have, again, bring everybody in that group up to speed and come up with a plan.
Good. Yeah, everybody take them up on that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Next, Sheriff's Correction Division, A3150.
Yes. Again, there's no significant changes to any budget code, any line item. Our amended budget for last year was $10,324,866. We're asking for $10,396,19 for this year, and I can't pick any one item that jumps out as being any significant change. And Supervisor Diamond, we will have a better number as far as our contracts goes when I update this list, because there are a couple that I caught already.
Thank you.
Any questions for the sheriff on corrections? I see you're conservative on your revenue. So.
Yes.
Good. Okay. And that's it for the those budget items. No referrals or pendings. Privilege of the floor. Mr. Lehman, is there any public comment?
No, Chairman Leggett, there's no public comment on YouTube at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any supervisors have any questions before we adjourn the meeting? Yes, Chairman Thomas.
Yeah, as you're going through the budget there, I just got one suggestion, is that you should prepare your request back to your adopted 2020 budget, not your amended. Amended could be anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Because amended would recognize new revenue coming in. And what goes with that.
Thank you.
Actually, yeah, right.
We good? Okay. Motion to adjourn. I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Supervisor Bramer, is there a second?
Looks like he's down. He's $500,000 down.
A second?
We're adjourning by default. Thanks, Craig.
That's right.
That's what.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.